Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to the Jim Carrey Project. This is the project where we're watching all of Jim Carrey's movies in chronological order from the beginning of his career to modern day. I am your host, Brian Kondrach, and with me at a distance is...
Cary Grant.
And today we just finished watching The Cable Guy. This
Mm.
was June 14th, 1996. It was directed by Ben Stiller, and it was starring Jim Carrey, Matthew Broderick, George Siegel, and Leslie Mann. So, first and foremost, what'd you think?
I really liked it.
Yeah.
I had not seen it. I really had not seen any of it and had no idea and purposely didn't look up anything because I was like, well, I don't get to be surprised as often anymore. So
Uh-huh.
I decided just to
Just to
see.
wing
And
it.
I had no expectations. Like not all I knew that it was like a dark comedy. That's all
Mhm.
I knew. I didn't know anything else. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Yeah.
It it really is a great dark comedy. Like
Yeah.
it's got some real serious moments. It's got some real lighthearted moments. It's got slapstick. It's got just like jokes and puns and like commentary on life. And so, I mean, I think it's a fantastic movie. It is actually one of my favorites because it stars Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick, who, when I was in the '90s, those were probably my two favorite actors as a young male at the
Yeah.
time. You know,
Right.
Ferris Bueller's Day
Ferris
Off,
Bueller. Right.
and
Yeah.
Ferris Bueller, the character Ferris Bueller, is like, of course, something I really like felt drawn to. And then Jim Carrey, we've already been over that. Like, the reason I'm doing this project is because he's been one of
Right.
my favorite actors of all time. So
Yeah.
to put them both together, I think it was a phenomenal choice, and I think it pays off really, really well in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, Broderick, he's always just so solid and funny in such a quiet, dryish way that
Hmm.
it paired really well with Jim Carrey's character of being, over the top,
Yeah.
and and a different kind of over the top in this one for sure. It was dark, but
Hmm.
it wasn't as dark as I thought it might be. Like when I think of dark comedy, I think of like more dark and a little bit of comedy. It was
Yeah.
pretty comedic all the way through. Even
Yeah.
at the very end, it was. Um,
Yeah.
there's just those moments of the darkness. But I mean, yeah, Carrie's vibe was very different in this one. It was, I don't even know how to explain it. But whatever it was very still
Yeah.
big compared with Broderick.
Hmm.
They just were great together.
Yeah,
Really
I
fun.
think that Matthew Broderick has a very everyman kind of feel to him, which definitely we get starting off in the movie where he's just every guy frustrated with the cable company not being
He's
there.
almost like more than that. Like he's almost like a
Yeah,
Mr. Rogers to me, like
yeah,
he's too good and too quiet and too sweet. I mean, not in a bad way, but
yeah.
that's not not in Ferris Bueller, but like I think in a lot of the other projects I get that
No,
vibe from him.
yeah,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying on that one. In the movie Election, he starts off kind of similar like that, but that turns into a really dark comedy too. So for some reason, Broderick seems to be drawn to it,
He's
but
good at
they
that.
work really well for him.
Yeah.
Uh, it's so there's so many things that I want to
I don't
talk
even know
about
where
in
to
this
start.
movie. I
Yeah,
know.
and I didn't
I
take
mean,
any notes this time because I really was just watching and like I
watching it
didn't
to
even know
watch
what to
it.
write because I was just
Yeah.
enjoying it. I just wanted to soak it in.
So
So
first and foremost, let's talk a little bit Jim Carrey's choices. One of the things that, since we've been watching everything so quickly from one week to the next, really, it's hard to not see. And I've talked about this before. It's hard to not see the characters that we've seen before. And I had a couple of moments that I wrote down where it's like, it, his character of the cable guy seems like if Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber like actually was smart enough to get a job and then get fired from that job, because it
yeah,
seems like he's so enthusiastic about life or very specific parts of life that it comes off like that he didn't know any better about that. But
yeah.
Jim Carrey, his choice was very like specific in these kind of movies.
Yeah, I would say you're probably right. Like out of all the characters he's played, the Lloyd Christmas one's
Yeah,
probably the most similar. I would,
yeah.
yeah,
If he were just smart and demented, like that whole
yeah,
like if Lloyd Christmas knew what everything and how people treated him, like, and realized it at some point before he like snapped. That's kind of like this could be
yeah,
the sequel to Dumb and Dumber if he were a smart guy.
yeah, yeah. You're totally right. Like he's the
Yeah,
smart version of that. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, he's so good at being so creepy. Um,
yeah.
it's bonkers. Like one of the other notes that I made is that one of the things that I really love about this movie, and we talked, like, is that as creepy as Jim Carrey is as the cable guy, right? He still is able to play extremely endearing at certain points. You know, throughout the movie, we see him
There's some
becoming
honesty behind
be
it. Yeah,
earnest and be serious. That all he wants is a friend, and but then when that doesn't happen, he just switches and goes the other direction really
yeah,
quickly.
yeah. I mean, some of the creepiest parts don't come off as creepy because he's pretending to be something else. Like when he's at the house and they're playing the charades with the family,
Hmm.
like he seems like, oh, everyone likes him. He's a great
Yeah,
guy. But that's the creepiest because you
yeah,
know that's not the truth, you know?
yeah. His
So
ability to manipulate people is incredible.
yeah, that's where it gets freaky is because then
Yeah.
because you know already what's going on. Some of the other times when he's, I guess, trying to be creepy, even like the dream that he had, which isn't really him.
Hmm.
Then I guess it's the dream
Yeah.
version of it. It still is like funny. Like it's still
Yeah.
that part didn't scare me. I thought that part was like funny and the way he was
Yeah.
like being in the hallway. But maybe that was meant to be that way, like
Yeah.
because
It's a
it's a
little
dream.
bit
It's
of a
not really him.
yeah. I used to do that all the time after I saw that movie. Like I'd be like, all right, bye, I'm leaving, and then like fake walk down the hall. See y'all. Just from a far
That's
distance.
really good. That's what made me laugh. I laughed out loud because his see y'all it really sounded
He's-
far away.
and it's
He
like
did it really good.
that's one of my favorite parts in this movie right there.
That's
Oh,
so funny.
it's so sad because this movie technically was panned by audiences and critics because it was such a switch from the characters that we'd been seeing Jim Carrey
Yeah,
in. But it holds up. It freaking
totally.
is a good comedy. It holds up. Its writing is still very relevant. I
Yeah.
mean, if you think about all the things that are in this movie that are still relevant 20 years, 14 years later, you
Oh, more than
know,
that.
actually, yeah,
Yeah.
24
25.
years,
Yeah.
25 years
Almost.
later.
Yeah.
We talked about it last time with Batman Forever, but like the whole thing and how prophetic this movie is you'll be video conferencing, you'll be connecting to games via the internet, you'll be chatting with your
Well,
friends
I
via,
was thinking about that because he said that twice, and then I was like, wow, that we really didn't have any of that before.
oh,
Like it really was like, people
yeah,
kind of had talked about that, and then we're like,
hmm,
oh, that's future stuff.
yeah,
What, you don't really think it'll happen. I remember thinking
yeah,
that at the time, and
yeah.
then it does, and
and
it's
then
kind of
and in
crazy we're doing
90,
it right now. Yeah,
yeah, and in 1996, the internet's been around a little bit, but it's still not
yeah.
as incredible as it's going to be by the end of 99 and early 2000s and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And
I
so it's just like it sees the future for what it is better than I think a lot of other things did at the time.
I guess I know. I mean, like I said, people were saying those kind of things, but it was like, yeah, maybe I don't
Yeah,
really know. But then now that it really has, it's really kind of
yeah,
funny. I didn't really realize there was going to be such a social commentary on in the movie about well, obviously, all the way along was about sort of loneliness and friendship
hmm,
and that kind of thing. Um, and then I didn't. I mean, I saw obviously the TV side of him and how he, we kind of get that he watched a lot of TV as a child and everything. But like
yeah.
the whole like at the end, like I got to kill when he
I
basically
have
tries
to
to commit
kill the
suicide and kills the
babysitter.
babysitter.
Yeah.
Sort of a like it's totally like, oh yeah, well, where are my kids right now? They're on the iPads,
Yeah,
like
they're using the
oops.
electronics device while mom is hanging out watching movies with her
Yeah, a
buddy.
little guilt on that one, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, oh wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty, intense of what the messaging was on that.
Yeah, and it's real funny, especially this was 1996. So we talked about this earlier during while we were watching it, but I was like, oh, it's like the OJ trial. you brought up the Menendez brothers
Menendez
trials.
brothers. It felt like that to me.
Yeah,
You always saw the guy that it was two guys and
two
they killed their
brothers.
parents. Yeah,
Yeah,
brothers. And they always saw them like sitting in the
courtroom
courtroom. It
being
looked like that. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't remember any of that trial, but I do remember like snippets and being a part of the OJ trial. And this whole movie really set it up well, like grabbing and like portraying that feeling of, especially in the mid 90s, when like early to mid 90s, when this was like what people talked about, the Menendez trial, the OJ trial. It was the only thing on TV for,
I think I'm gonna look it
months
up,
at a
but I think the
time.
OJ trial was later in '96. I feel
I,
like it was
it,
'96, but I feel like it was like fall, wasn't it?
I looked it up, but I didn't look up actually when it was. So it probably would have been
I think it
after.
was after this. I
It
think it
probably would have been,
was.
which is
Yeah.
also
Oh, I can't.
ironic that it's like a movie like this, and then now the OJ trial is coming out right after it.
Yeah, right
It's like we just
afterwards.
saw this commentary on it. Maybe we should
Yeah.
check it out.
You know, and another sort of like lesson or whatever I was kind of
Mhm.
thinking about it during the filming of it too is, you know, the whole friendship idea and like how he just really wants a friend. And I mean, you kind of remember I remember guys, but people like that in high school who like just want someone to be a friend and they end up coming off creepy because they don't have
Mhm.
friends and they're trying to have friends. And then
Yeah.
they do create, and then, you know, they just, I mean, for me, it was just creepy. But then, you know, now with all the like school shootings and stuff too, that's lots of times what you hear is like
Yeah.
someone like that who like
They were a
is just
loner.
trying hard to get friends, but doesn't have any. So they go more and more in their hole, and
Mhm.
and then those are the ones who like lots of times do things like that, and it's just kind of, I don't know what the answer is to that, but like I don't know. Just watching that made me kind of feel that way about
Yeah.
his character. So
Yeah. It's scary, and it says a lot about nature versus nurture. You know, what would his life be like if his mom, who was Kathy Griffith, by the way, we don't ever see her
you don't see
face.
her face, but I saw it like in the
You know,
yeah, and the
like what would his life be like if if his mom had paid just a little bit more attention to her, or if like she had turned off the TV instead of going out and things like that. We don't really know much more about his past life except for that. So I mean, where
right,
were his friends from school? Why wouldn't he be at school? Where wouldn't he have any of that connections with people? But
yeah.
he had to learn how to get into cable and understand that stuff somehow. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess most people get jobs and stuff at
Yeah.
some point. It was kind of interesting too because he always knew everybody, but I guess he just like was giving free cable to everybody. So
Yeah,
like, but some of them were kind of his friends and some of them weren't. I
I
guess
don't I don't think
he
anybody in
obviously
this.
didn't get creepy with everybody because
No.
he had people come to the party and he's like, oh, those are cable people. And I guess he
Yeah.
maybe picks one guy who wants, he's like, I need a
Yeah.
best friend and that's the
Well,
guy I choose.
and yeah, that makes sense. And one thing I actually wrote down is that there's quite a mirror of characteristics between Jim Carrey, the cable guy, and then Matthew Broderick's character, which he's generic. I can't even think of his name right now. But if you think about it, Matthew Broderick
Steven.
is Steven. He's just broken up. He just got broken up with. He's lonely. He like is pining for this relationship that's not working out. Whereas
Hmm.
the cable guy is lonely, needs friendship, and pining for a relationship that's not
Right.
necessarily working out. So they're
Right.
almost the two sides of the same coin in when it comes to how people can deal with relationships, or how
Yeah.
like Steven could easily go down a dark corner or take a turn and go down this dark path of like
Yeah.
stalking his ex-girlfriend, or like it actually. So having Jim Carrey's version of him really did save Steven from becoming the creepy guy, if you think about it.
Yeah, you're right. Like he had something else to deal with
Yeah.
the Jim
Uh,
Carrey character, so
uh,
it diverted his attention a bit
yeah,
from. And
instead of
in the
pining.
beginning was interesting because the advice that Jim Carrey's character gave him was good advice. It was
Hmm.
working, and so he's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, okay." So
just
he was kind of listening to him a bit, you know, and
yeah.
it was kind of like, well, what? How does he have such good advice? Like, what? Like, where does that come from? But
He's
then
done
I
it
guess it's just
before.
creepy. Yeah,
He's done it before. He's seen it hundreds of times.
yeah,
But going back to the characters of like who are all of his cable friends, right? Obviously, the medieval times people is something that he
yeah.
probably tried to do a lot. If he goes there every 2 times a week,
Two
he's like,
times a
oh, well,
week is a lot.
I'll give you guys free cable. You just let me come in and see the show for free.
Yeah.
And then the fact that he's giving him free cable lets him do the whole fight scene or whatever.
Yeah.
The cop that was at the karaoke party was the one that arrested him. So like he's developed these connections. He's surprisingly well connected for being a sociopath and a loner, if you think about it.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's kind of weird.
Yeah. You know what I kept thinking was going to happen? I kept thinking he was going to be like the dead brother of the guy who was I know they were supposed to be twins, but I thought, well, maybe he had like changed his appearance or something and he was that guy.
So
I couldn't figure out why they kept showing the murder the murder trial. Yeah. So I kept thinking, well, maybe it's that dark that he's actually that person or something. But.
Yeah. I think it was the writing was well done on that one, where it was just to make sure that like the cable, everybody wants cable, which is why everyone's willing to do these things that are a little shady for the cable guy. And then also, of course, you have to have someone to kill the babysitter and then, show that television
it needs to line
bad.
up. It needs to line up. But yeah, you're right. I mean, like people were doing, not except for the cop maybe, but not terribly bad things, but some somewhat questionable things for free cable. Like, and what kind of comment is that on people? Like,
I mean, if I got
you're
internet,
willing to,
if I could stop paying my internet bill and still get the internet I'm getting, I probably would do some pretty things, especially if I ever have to deal with customer service. I don't want to call them and talk to them at all.
But it seems like a little thing. It seems like a little thing to do. Well, like the medieval times, I mean, that's fine, whatever. But like the cop, like going and arresting somebody because you got free cable.
Yeah.
Just seems kind of, ugh.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, since the cop knows everything was there, the karaoke machine and everything.
I guess,
how do you know? I don't know. He kept it from him. Let's talk about the medieval times thing for a second. I did do some research on this one a little bit. Apparently, Matthew Broderick is allergic to horses. They were doing like 14-hour days in medieval times.
Can he just take allergy medicine?
Hard time like breathing. Yeah. But then the other thing is that the Silence of the Lambs moment is another great improvised Jim Carrey moment.
Yeah.
Where they were there, they had the chicken, and he's like, ooh, watch this. And he grabs it, puts it on his face.
He does a good one.
Yeah. And so the reaction from Matthew Broderick is like, he's giggling. So he's actually like trying not to crack up for the scene.
Yeah. Well, and he did Silence of the Lambs in another movie. Which one was that? He did that impression. He did a Clarice. He did.
Really? I cannot remember. It was.
He did. I mean, it wasn't.
It was Dumb and Dumber, where he's talking about, "I'll take that with a nice bottle of Chianti." And
that's right.
Whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, this one was more because of stuff on his face, but
it's another Lloyd Christmas connection.
Yeah, totally.
It's the same guy. It's the same universe.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I thought that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go.
Oh, I was just saying. I made a note. I wonder if, while we're still in the medieval times thing, his skills with the big like bladed weapon. I'm wondering if those were skills that he picked up from his time doing the Riddler in Batman Forever.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's why he was so good at it. If that was actually him doing it.
Yeah, that medieval times part was really funny. Like it could have been like one of those weird things that were like, someone's like, I want to put medieval times in my movie, and it feels like something that they just wanted to do that doesn't fit, but it actually did fit, and it was really funny. Yeah. And it set up more of the relationship and what was to come too. Yeah. So I thought I liked that part.
And at least it shows us that they both know how to kind of fight.
Yeah.
it's the most most theatrical of everything happening in the show.
Yeah. I enjoyed the basketball scene too. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
And odd. Like, why does he show up? And he's like, okay, this is my friend, and let's play. And then, just a little bit of the silliness with the running and like warming up. But that's totally just like Jim Carrey, And I don't know. So funny how he like. I mean, sometimes it's a little bit Lloyd Christmas because I like. Does he not get why that was bad to
I
do? Like if
I don't
you're
know.
really trying to be friends with somebody? I don't know.
I don't know. I think he's
But it
just
was funny.
it's a sociopathic kind of thing. It's funny
Yeah.
that you bring up the basketball thing because in the research I found Jim Carrey did not know how to play basketball. And
Oh,
so they
really?
actually did do some not CGI but like post production kind of graphics
Help him out a
to
bit.
help him out a little bit.
Funny.
Also, the glass was supposed to fall backwards, not on top of everybody. And
Oh.
so apparently the pyrotechnics guy got fired like on the spot during that shooting.
But
And
it
it's just
looked
like,
really cool. Is that the
I
shot
know
that you
that
mean?
they
Yeah.
ended up keeping it in the
Yeah.
movie, and it's like I bet whoever fired him feels real bad that they're like, oh well, we kept your shot. Sorry,
I think,
sorry
but
about your
see,
bad
I
luck.
think that's, I mean, yeah, I know they got to set it up, but I think when you like, when people really do bust those
Yeah.
things like that, it does, that's the way it falls. What are you going to
Why
do?
wouldn't it fall directly on?
Why would it
You're
fall the
pulling the
opposite
thing down
way?
right on there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I
Poor
know.
guy.
I know, right?
He got fired for
That
that.
poor guy.
Yeah.
Um, some real fun stuff about this movie. While I'm talking about a little bit of trivia stuff.
Yeah, tell me.
Uh, this was, of course, Ben Stiller's. I don't know if it was directorial debut, but it was one of his first directing movies. He was in the middle of had the Ben Stiller show, which was his
Mhm.
sketch show in the '90s. Did not last very long, but
I don't
everybody that
remember
we
that.
see, Andy Dick, Janine Garofalo, um, blah, 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 I can't think of his name. Jack Black and like a bunch of
They
them
were
were
all in
all
it?
people that were friends and like worked Leslie Mann, like they all worked with Ben Stiller for the Ben Stiller show. So it's like, oh,
Oh,
it was like filming with an
your
extended version
friends.
of my sketch
Yeah.
show.
I mean, I always kind of know that those people, like, there's sort of a, rough group that even when
Mhm.
Owen Wilson jumps, you're like, okay,
Yeah,
he's going to be with Ben Stiller and that kind of
yeah,
thing. I didn't realize it was
which
from the sketch show
yeah, that's where they
because
all
I've
knew
never
each other
seen it.
from. I not
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, it was very short lived, and I don't think it
Look
had
it
very
up.
good ratings.
Oh.
Which is so weird because there's so many actors that I've seen that I know now that like, oh, we had a sketch show that I was a part of back in the '80s or '90s. It's like, when? I was like for 3 weeks, and then it got canceled.
Right,
Dang,
yeah.
that sucks.
I might look that up
Uh,
and see if I can find any old episodes of that.
yeah. The other thing that's real interesting with that one, oh, by the way, talking about Owen Wilson, we talked about it during the movie. Like, this might be one of his like creepiest, seediest characters that we ever see him in. It's
He's
just the
never seedy, is he? I
uh,
can't remember any that he's really
he's
is he
always
in.
played. He was
He's just
seedy.
happy
Yeah,
country
he's always a
boy.
happy guy, and he's like
Yeah.
he was a little seedy in Wedding Crashers, but he ended up being
Little, but then it was
endearing.
like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It doesn't hang in there. Yeah.
but this
But
one
I
was
swear
very
he was laughing in that bathroom scene.
when he's getting
He
his
looked
butt
like he was
kicked.
smiling the whole time. Like he didn't like toward the end he was like, but like he looked like he was
Yeah,
just cracking up. And
yeah.
I didn't realize Jim Carrey and like him were ever in the same movie together. Like I would
I
never have,
didn't.
if you would have said, have they done any movies together? I would have been like, no,
Yeah, you would have
but
lost that round of trivia or
yeah,
whatever. Oh
totally. Well,
well.
now I won't.
No, not at all. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really think it's got to be hard to work with Jim Carrey in situations like that where it's like he's
Yeah.
supposed to be beating me up, but he's like doing your hair. It's like just
He was really doing,
weird.
even in the basketball scene too. I don't remember who he was, but he was like reaching around and like being
Oh,
really silly. And I was like, oh my
playing a
God,
bunch
I
of
don't know.
grab
I
ass.
don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I could keep a serious face with that either.
No,
So
it
so
was funny.
funny.
I think Ben Stiller did a great job with this movie. He relegated himself to a very small supporting character, which
I
is
don't think he
not
ever
normal for Ben
spoke.
Stiller. No,
Yeah,
and usually when Ben Stiller directs something, he is
usually
also
in it.
the
Yeah,
lead character in it. So
yeah,
I think his choice to play the creepy brother was actually really good.
yeah.
Uh, it's funny the Eric Roberts,
Julia
the
Roberts' brother. Yeah,
yeah, the made for TV movie that they're like
starring.
throwing around in
Yeah,
the show. Um, that guy actually has a movie based in Houston that is just I saw released on like Facebook or Amazon or something as
recently.
well. Yeah, like
Uh,
this year.
oh,
It's like that guy does not seem to age at all.
no, I
It's
know.
creepy.
Yeah, that's funny.
Um, this is
Yeah.
actually where Judd Apatow and Leslie Mann met. She read for him to get cast, and then now they're married and have been married for a long time.
So what was his part in the movie?
Judd Apatow is just a producer.
He was
He's
one of the
helped
producers. Okay.
he helped
Who
write.
wrote it?
So it was uh, the son of a really famous writer that I cannot think of off the top of my head. It is
So none of them,
Lou
been
Holtz. Lou Holtz Jr. is who wrote it. So
okay.
Lou Holtz Sr. did a bunch of television in the 30s and 40s and 50s, did Twilight Zone, did a bunch of movies. And then this is his son. This is actually his only writing credit as of 2018.
Wow.
So he is definitely like, he actually, it's what's interesting about it is that he actually wrote it, and then it got in a bidding war between a couple of different studios. They ended up paying $1 million for this script.
That's a lot.
It was a lot. And then he stepped away from it, but because Judd Apatow was in the Producers Guild, they have really strict rules about if you're a producer and a writer and stuff. So he never got credit as a writer because he helped finalize some of the scripts.
Oh, so he he touched up and stuff as it were going.
But
so okay.
Basically, it was Lou Holtz.
Okay.
Lou Holtz Jr. So
Leslie Mann was kind of getting big at that time too. I felt like I wonder that movie with Adam Sandler, Big Daddy. I feel like that probably came out around that time, and she was in that one, and like she definitely was starting to like be seen more too.
Yeah, she's
just a cute little character usually.
And then she's been in a bunch of Judd Apatow productions and things like
obviously.
that. Yeah. This movie. One more thing about the production of it. So we were talking about Ben Stiller directing. He actually filmed a lot of the scenes with two different versions of them because this is such a stray from the characters that we know, like Jim Carrey and how lighthearted his movies have been. They actually filmed a light version and a dark version of this movie, and then ended up editing in a lot of the darker stuff. And then we know that the Columbia is not going to let us get away with this, so let's just put that in where like Jim Carrey doesn't die at the end, or like some of the lighter hearted parts because it could have gotten probably very dark.
Yeah. That's what I said. Like, there was the undertones of it were kind of dark, and there was dark moments, but it didn't feel overly dark to me. Like I had thought and that I'd heard about, so.
No, they definitely had a lot of times where I think they probably had separate footage where they're like, all right, we'll put in this lighter stuff.
Interesting. I feel like that might make the shoot a whole lot longer, but I mean, I think it's so great to have those kind of options, and like, you can almost change the story a bit as you're editing. I mean, that's really cool. I like that idea.
Jim Carrey really, really wanted to kill himself as the character, not himself in this movie. Like he'll sacrifice, he'll make that sacrifice.
Yeah. Well, and that's where more of the dark turn would have been, but.
Yeah, that movie would have been
probably better they didn't. I mean, I think, like you said, people were not expecting to see that from, Jim Carrey, a new Jim Carrey movie's out, and people just were not expecting that kind of stuff. So I think probably pulling back was a good idea. I don't know. I mean, it was good. I enjoyed all the characters in it. Like, like we're talking about Leslie Mann and Broderick, and even the whole, Owen Wilson and all that, and
Jack Black.
The family, Jack Black. Yeah, the family scenes was funny. Like it was just like it was a good cast, and it was solid, and it was entertaining. And I still didn't really know what was happening, which is good. It wasn't like a
it wasn't easily
foregone
figured
conclusion.
out.
Yeah, like I still was trying to figure things out toward the end. So I think it was great. Yeah.
So it was not well received by critics, of course, you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
It actually had a budget of $47 million.
Ooh, that's big.
Here's the bigger part. $20 million of that was Jim Carrey's salary, which was a record at the time for people being paid for a box office movie like this, a comedy specifically. But I mean, he had Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, Batman. He had all of those things, and
he was doing well.
coming off. They actually came to him during filming for Ace Ventura to discuss like him being a part of it. And
Yeah.
so he is already getting 15 million. It's like, oh, you can't get me anything else,
It's crazy. I
other
wonder
than
what he
that.
gets like now. Like I wonder,
I
do you
don't
know what he
know.
got? Did we talk about what he got in Sonic?
I don't think we talked about the salary. We probably tried to talk about box office a little bit, but we didn't ever talk
Yeah.
about the salary on that one.
Mm.
But
Just
yeah, it
curious if
grossed.
it's like like dipped or goes up and
Oh,
down
it's
for him.
probably way
It
more
probably
now.
goes up and down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
His
Go
box
ahead.
office was only 108 million.
Oh, they made
So
a little bit.
yeah, about half,
And they
twice
had
it.
some pretty big other people in there. I mean, they must have got paid decently too. Like, I'm sure Broderick got a pretty good paycheck out of that. Not as
Yeah,
much, but I'm sure he did pretty well. And, you know, that kind of
yeah,
thing. I don't know. That's
yeah. I don't
crazy.
either.
And it's also a film with a fairly new director, which I know
Yeah.
the other ones were too, but like, they put a lot of money on Jim to carry everything,
Hmm. I mean, he does. He's able to carry a lot in these kind of movies.
Yeah.
His energy, the level of his energy, the level of his commitment to the character and the bits. Like at
Mm.
the very beginning, I heard you laughing where he's coming in as the cable guy trying to find the cable spot, and it's just like
It's so funny. I know.
it's great. I freaking love this movie so much.
It's sometimes, like I said, I always like the little subtle things, and it's like
Yeah,
that was making me laugh of like
yeah.
I'm trying to
So
find it.
what would you rate this movie?
Hmm. God, 8.5. I liked
Really
it.
nice.
Yeah,
Nice. That's really good.
yeah.
IMDb gives it a 6.1,
Mm.
but I'll be right there with you and give it an 8.5 as well. Just because, I already told you, Matthew Broderick, Jim Carrey, the writing's superb. It's exciting.
I think the only problem this movie had was that it came right after a couple of his really really silly ones. If you would
Mm,
take this movie out and move it up, 5-10 years down the line on Jim Carrey's,
yeah.
career, I think it
Yeah.
would have done so much better because then we got used to seeing him in more serious roles and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect amount of seriousness and scary and dark and his comedy, like it
Yeah.
just came out at the wrong time.
I think you're right. I mean, the next couple of things we see are like Liar Liar, Truman Show. I mean, we get to another darkish comedy with Me, Myself, and Irene, but like everything else is still really lighthearted for all of these things that he does. It's just a real odd placed thing, and it's like, where would it have been better?
Well, and the thing is, one movie had to make that change. Like you
Hmm.
can't, like with Jim wanted to start doing different things. At some point, you have to do something that's different, and people are going to be like, I don't know if we like you in this. Like, well, this is not how we know you. So one movie had to do it, and
Yeah.
this is the movie that, like, okay, well, let's see what else he can do. And then people sort of like,
Yeah.
okay, you do it again, and you do it again. They're, okay, you could do this. So
Yeah. I feel like this is
kind of
another
sad though.
one. I feel like this is another one that has somewhat of a cult
I'm
following
sure.
to it.
Yeah.
Just like at this point, where Dumb and Dumber technically is a cult classic. High Strung, which we have not watched, is technically a cult classic, and then you've got this one, which I don't think people necessarily consider it a cult classic, but there's people like me and now you that are like, no, this is a great
This is a
movie.
great movie. Yeah.
It's super fun. It's so well
Yeah.
done. So I think
I
I
mean, it
enjoy
was,
it.
I had really like, even though I'm quarantined, I'm
Yeah,
weirdly not watching a lot of movies right now just because I have
yeah,
kids. So I can't always watch what I want to watch. It was
yeah.
like so enjoyable to like see a movie I haven't seen before,
Uh-huh.
really enjoy it. My kids left me alone. Like,
Yeah,
it was like totally enjoyable afternoon. Like, loved
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Don't let them get into the cable business though. After
No.
this quarantine.
I don't know. How long will the cable business even last? There's
Who knows? It's all
like
streaming
really changing
services.
now. Yeah, I know. It might not even be a cable guy. It like another 20 years and like the kids nowadays would be like, what's cable? I don't get
Yeah, I don't know.
it.
Streaming. You can bundle
Yeah.
up your Disney Plus and your Netflix and your Amazon into one package and get all the
It's all
channels.
on the TV already.
I
Yeah.
know. Don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, cool. Let's wrap this up.
Cool.
So I think this was a lot of fun. One of my favorite movies with the cable guy. You said you enjoyed seeing it for the first time.
Okay.
So thank you guys for hanging out and watching us talk about the Cable Guy for a little bit
Go
with the Jim
watch it.
Carrey
It's
project.
worth it.
Go watch it if you haven't. You've got the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
My name is Brian Kondrach.
And I'm Carrie Grant.
Please like, subscribe, follow us, check us out on Instagram, social media, and all of our podcasts. Like our other videos and stuff. And we will see you next time for, I think it's Liar Liar.
Okay.
And let me make sure on that one. And yes, it is the 1997 movie Liar Liar, which is also another one of my favorite movies.
That's a cute
And
one. I
so
like that one
it
too.
is fun.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.